I was done shooting Mended Light videos. I was all done for the shoot. I was fine. And then Will Smith dropped this apology video, and I have to add my thoughts because people are coming out with knives out. Does Will deserve it? What does a good apology look like? And is this a good apology? Let's talk about it. I reacted months ago to the actual slap. I mistakenly said that both Will Smith and Chris Rock had apologized to each other. It was just Will Smith, actually. And Will Smith apologized on an Instagram post and didn't apologize to Chris personally, which Chris Rock's mom called him out on sometime after. There have been a lot of people, a lot of questions, a lot of comments, a lot of opinions on Will Smith following the slap heard around the world. And I wanted to respond to his apology. It is not my position to judge Will. I don't know Will. I don't judge people that I know, much less people that I don't know. What I do want to look at is, if you're trying to convey sincerity, and if you are sincere, how do you go about doing that? And does this apology seem to accomplish that? Because the fact is, all of us make mistakes, sometimes horrific mistakes. And something that I learned from therapy is that though we need to be held accountable for our worst behaviors, none of us want to be defined by our worst behaviors. And one thing that bothers me is people acting like this is Will Smith's defining moment after decades of showing the world who he is. And there's a lot of cynicism, understandably. Is this a real apology? He is an actor after all. Is this performative? Is he just trying to save his career? Does he actually feel remorse? And how would we know the difference? Let's take a look. It's been a minute. Over the last few months, I've been doing a lot of thinking and personal work. Yeah, this would be a therapy thing. You asked a lot of fair questions that I wanted to take some time to answer. And I've already heard some people say that if he reached out to Chris Rock and he apologized, that he should just let it be. And that would make it sincere, but this is performative. But you're a public figure. You're trying to build a legacy. You're trying to build something you're proud of. You do something stupid and you risk flushing that all down the toilet. You're going to take the time. People are like damage control, as if damage control is necessarily a vain and selfish thing. What I'm most interested in is this pure damage control, or is there sincere remorse for what he's done in this, and what is taking the reins?
Why didn't you apologize to Chris in your acceptance speech? I was fogged out by that point. It's all fuzzy. I've reached out to Chris.
So is that a cop-out? Psychologically, I would say no. You get into a state of high arousal, high anger, high embarrassment, where those emotions are taking control, and not being able to think clearly is absolutely what happens when we are in that state, in that mental state. That's why one of the things that I teach people is, when you're highly aroused, to soothe yourself and bring yourself down.
And the message that came back is that he's not ready to talk, and when he is, he will reach out. So I will say to you, Chris, I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk.
Heard a lot of people say that's BS. He shouldn't leave it in Chris's court. This is performative. If it were a sincere apology, he wouldn't make it publicly. He'd make it privately and leave it at that, and not publicly call Chris out like that. Here's the thing: Chris Rock's people said he'll get back to you when he's ready, and Will is just owning publicly, yeah, when he's ready, I'm here to talk. Number one. Number two, he's not reading from cue cards or a prompter. The reason I can tell is because I've read from cue cards and a prompter before, and your eyes move a little bit, but even more than that, it's a lot more smooth. If the Instagram post, Will's Instagram post, was written by his publisher, as a lot of people say, well, that's just something his publisher threw together. See, I understand the cynicism. You know, a lot of people, high-profile public people, statements are issued that were written and crafted by somebody else that are just an effort to save that person's career, and there's no sincerity there. Will's not reading from a prepared statement here, which is why he's pausing so long between his words. He's trying to find the words that he wants to say. Now you could say, he's a hell of an actor, maybe that's all just performance. Yeah, maybe. Absolutely it could be. Actors are still just people. And it's gotta be really hard. I mean, look, I'm not sympathizing with Will here. At least I'm not sympathizing with Will over Chris. Chris made a tasteless joke, and then he got assaulted on global television. right? Like Chris has every right to not forgive Will. Chris has every right to not respond. Chris has every right to just move on with his life. Will did him wrong. But Will's doing what he can do, in my view, which is keeping his side of the street clean. And saying that I reached out to Chris and he's not ready, and he said, and I heard that he'll reach back out to me. Like, people are asking the question. So is Will Smith defending himself? Yeah. Is Will Smith trying to save his image? Yeah, absolutely. It's an image he spent decades of his life building up his legacy, building up who he is before the world. I want you to imagine that you have worked hard for your good name, and you have worked hard for your reputation, and you have worked hard for your achievements. And then your worst mistake plays out in front of everybody. And that worst mistake now becomes all that they see. Would you not want to reclaim your good name? Not by saying I'm still a good person, but by saying what I did was wrong? Would you not want to reclaim your good name and answer people's questions when they say, why haven't you reached out to apologize? And say, I have. And, ball's in his court, I understand. Now, some say he should hold his tongue at this point. Some say he issued an Instagram apology. He reached out to Chris privately, and Chris didn't want to talk to him. And at this point, he shouldn't answer these questions. He should just let it be. And that's a valid approach. As somebody who's made public mistakes, some of them on this channel, if you scroll through our videos, I have an apology video here. We've got an apology post over on Cinema Therapy in the community channel. Like Will says, look at this frame picture. The world is sick, love is the cure. That could absolutely be performance. That could absolutely be he's just trying to portray himself as someone loving and he's not sincere. But the fact is, none of us know. My personal experience, I'm somebody who's trying to use my platform and reach to spread awareness about mental health and mental illness. I'm trying to use my platform to spread messages of love and tolerance because that's something I believe in greatly. There have been times on this channel and on Cinema Therapy that I've said things that were insensitive, or I've said some things that were inaccurate, or I've said some things that I later said that wasn't the best way to express myself, and I ended up hurting somebody. If I apologize, people could say, yeah, well, he's just trying to save his YouTube channel from going down in flames. Okay, maybe that's part of it. But what if I actually feel remorse? How would you know the difference? You wouldn't. None of us know what's really going on with this man. None of us know who he really is. The thing that irks me is how quickly we get our knives out to assume that because he's Hollywood, that because he's an actor, and because he did something horrific, that he's categorically all across the board a bad person and not worthy of a second chance. Do we really want to approach people and life that way? Because I know I certainly wouldn't want to be judged for that. I know I certainly wouldn't want to be given that treatment. Let's say Alicia and I adore her. I've been hurtful and rude to her sometimes. I've raised my voice at her sometimes. We're a married couple. That happens. What if that happened publicly? And everybody says, see, he's not a relationship expert. Everything he says on YouTube is BS. He doesn't mean any of it. He's just doing it for the cheddar because I saw him and his wife getting into it and he raised his voice at her. I would be wrong to raise my voice at her, but I'm so much more than that moment. And my bias is, yes, draw boundaries to protect yourself, by all means. But if we can't approach people with compassion and a modicum of charity, then what are we, if not hypocrites? What are we, if not people who are unwilling to let others change and grow?
I want to apologize to Chris's mother. I saw an interview that Chris's mother did, and that was one of the things about that moment. I just didn't realize, and I wasn't thinking, but how many people got hurt in that moment. Mm-hmm. So I want to apologize to Chris.
Our consequences have actions across the board.
To Chris's family, specifically Tony Rock. We had a great relationship.
Tony is Chris's dad.
Tony Rock was my man. This is probably irreparable.
That's part of what makes a good apology. I'm not apologizing so that you'll forgive me. I'm apologizing because you deserve an apology and because I can't do the work for myself and be better if I'm not accountable. And when he says it's probably irreparable, he's acknowledging that he understands if they don't want anything to do with him. Quick tangent, why make a public apology? because this was a public offense. If I insult somebody, disrespect, or hurt somebody privately, I apologize privately. If I disrespect somebody publicly, I apologize publicly to make things right. I was wrong, and they didn't deserve it.
I spent the last 3 months replaying and understanding the nuances and the complexities of what happened in that moment. And I'm not going to try to unpack all of that right now, but I can say to all of you, there is no part of me that thinks that was the right way to behave in that moment.
Again, a lot of people would try and justify their behavior. Well, Jada and I were going through some stress, or, well, because of what I went through growing up. Because he did talk about, growing up, his biggest failure he felt was he didn't protect his mom when she needed his protection. And I can see why psychologically that would bring up something like this, in that moment where he felt like he needed to protect a woman in his life that he failed to do before. But what I love is there's not a part of me that thinks this was the right way to handle that situation. There's no justifying, there's no minimizing, there's no excusing. No matter what was going on with me, no matter what history here or personal struggle there, the behavior was wrong, period. And honestly, it's a pretty damn good apology so far.
There's no part of me that thinks that's the optimal way to handle a feeling of disrespect or insults. After Jada rolled her eyes, did she tell you to do something? No. It's like, I made a choice on my own, from my own experiences, from my history.
I know a lot of you are calling BS, but none of us know.
I'm sorry, babe. I'm going to say sorry to my kids and my family for the heat that I brought on all of us. To all my...
And you did. And he's felt it. And this is why I'm not calling for Will Smith's head. What he did was wrong. He owned it to the Academy. He has now owned it to Chris and to Chris's family. He's owned it to his family. He's been banned from the Academy for 10 years. And there's major fallout to his career, but also just major fallout to him personally. But the hardest thing I know as a husband and a father would be that this behavior has hurt my family. I don't want to say, hasn't he suffered enough? Like that's... I don't care about any of that, but I do think, what do any of us stand to gain from coming after him? My thinking is that we're projecting a lot of our own experience onto Will and our own biases onto Will. Again, I'm not saying Will Smith is a good person. This could all be performance. I'm saying that if he were to give a sincere apology, it would look exactly like this. If he genuinely felt remorse, it would look exactly like this. And I don't really gain anything from believing that it's performative and that he's fake. That doesn't serve my life in any way. And I don't need to forgive him anyway. He didn't slap me. It's up to Chris Rock.
To all my fellow nominees, this is a community. It's like I won because you voted for me. And it really breaks my heart to have stolen and tarnished your moment.
I could tell you, I don't look away from the camera when I'm reading off a prompter, because then I have to scurry and find it, find my place again. He's not. Maybe this was prepared, maybe he memorized it, maybe he rehearsed it so it would seem remorseful. He is an actor after all. This is a 5-minute monologue. Okay, but maybe, just maybe, it's real.
I can still see Questlove's eyes. It happened on Questlove's award, and it's like I'm sorry really isn't sufficient.
Yeah, I've felt that before.
What would you say to the people who looked up to you before the slap, or people who expressed that you let them down? So there's two things. One, disappointing people is my central trauma. I hate when I let people down. So it hurts. It hurts me psychologically and emotionally to know I didn't live up to people's image and impression of me.
It's a lot of pressure.
The work I'm trying to do is I am deeply remorseful, and I'm trying to be remorseful without being ashamed of myself.
Yes.
Right? I'm human. And
that's crucial, because you hate yourself, then you continue in unhealthy behaviors. If you feel remorse, then you make changes. If you feel shame, then you just dig in deeper. He's got the money for a really good therapist. If it's not coming from him, then someone's helping him to get to this space, because this is good stuff. This is exactly what he needs to be doing.
I made a mistake, and I'm trying not to think of myself as a piece of shit. So I would say to those people, I know it was confusing. I know it was shocking. But I promise you, I am deeply devoted and committed to putting light and love and joy into the world.
And you can see it in his work,
you know,
honestly. Look, I'm not saying this as a Will Smith fan who really wants it to be true that he's a good guy. I'm saying this as somebody who has sat in therapy with a lot of people giving BS apologies. And that's not what this looks like. He's showing the awareness.
If you hang on, I promise we'll be able to be friends again.
So, a lot of you watching may think I'm completely wrong. You may think I'm naively optimistic. You may think that that Will Smith doesn't deserve this kindness. I'm gonna go back to, for those of you who've seen the film Everything Everywhere All at Once, there's a scene there that really speaks to me, in which Michelle Yeoh's husband, he talks about looking for the positive. And he says, when I look for the positive, I'm not being naive. It is strategic and necessary. It's how I've learned to survive everything. Be kind, he says, especially when we don't know what's going on. And then talking about the world at large, he says, I know you see yourself as a fighter. I see myself as one too, and this is how I fight. I choose to believe in the goodness of Will Smith for the same reason I choose to believe in the goodness of most people. That doesn't mean I naively let everyone into my life, that I don't make sure that people are trustworthy. What it does mean is that believing that people are awful and looking at an awful behavior and saying, that's it, that's the person, doesn't serve me. And it doesn't allow them to grow. Yes, there's the other side of that, which is being too forgiving or being too tolerant means that people just step in the same traps over and over and over again without learning, without growing, without changing. Right? I get that there needs to be consequences for behavior. We need to hold people accountable. And there are some people that we can love but never let back into our lives because we can't trust them. I get that. What I'm saying is, when he talks about wanting to put love and light into the world, I believe him. And to the point of this video, this is how you give a good apology. So either he's faking it, and we all just believe that he's a fake and a fraud and a phony, or we look at who he's shown himself to be over the decades, which is definitely not a perfect person. And I know there's a lot of scandal, like him and Jada and like all these things. But everyone who's worked with him and people that know him personally talk about his kindness, talk about his decency. And there's trauma there. Again, I'm not suggesting we let him off the hook. I'm suggesting he's been on the hook and now he's trying to do the work, right? What do you think? Am I wrong? Is Will faking it? What did you think of his apology? What do you think of my thoughts about how to approach people in the world? I want to hear from you in the comments below, because these are just my opinions. This is just how I see things. What helps you to feel safe? What helps you to survive? What helps you to be a fighter? Right? What does that look like for you? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, check out oldie but goodie Fresh Prince Gets Therapized, where I go back decades in Will's career and talk about this really poignant moment from the show that makes me cry every single time. Until next time, keep shining, folks, because we need your light. And here's that video I was telling you about. Check it out.